What is up, everybody? It's your boy Easy Paradox, and Big Ten have just made some big news. They've announced the schedules all the way till 28. And for those who don't know, that the Big Ten has been switched from a conference model, so like East and West, to more of a like two-play opponent model. This is the old picture from June. It's still essentially the same thing where there's protected opponents and there's two play opponents, which is the home and home each year, and then you switch out every couple years for new opponents. So these are like your guaranteed plays, and then there's a handful of like slews. So I guess this will help with like travel costs and stuff. Because if you were to have like West and East, I say like Iowa Hawkeyes, for example, they would have to play Oregon, UCLA, USC, and Washington every year, and that's just a lot of travel time and a lot of travel costs for just one school. And then for smaller schools on the West Coast, I guess like I don't even know like what would a small school be considered. Like Northwestern having to fly to the West Coast every other week would kind of suck. So switching to this model will definitely help play like the Flex Protect Plus kind of model. And then there's guaranteed. As you can notice, Iowa's the only team with like their 3 protected games are 3 rivalry games, which is part of their entire protected system anyway. So they should put that up to 4, so then we can have like a home and home with a another team like Ohio State or Michigan. That'd be super cool to have a home and home. And I'm not gonna bag on their rivalries like Minnesota, Nebraska, and Wisconsin, but just saying like having that ability to rotate like that. So what's new? New is that there are other guaranteed per annual protected matchups, such as like all of the ones listed above, like Illinois Northwestern. That's a great game. You should always watch it every year. It's always super fun and engaging. Illinois Purdue, Indiana Purdue, Iowa Minnesota, Iowa Nebraska, etc., etc. The new one, of course, is Oregon Washington. That is the only protected game that Oregon and Washington have, or against each other. And then UCLA and USC as well. Those are the only protected games as well. And then how the Big Ten championship, because I know there's a lot of questions that I've gotten from others of how's the Big Ten championship game going to work without conferences. It's essentially going back to what it was before they had conferences, where the top 2 teams would play for a championship. It's a little different because back in those days, it was just whoever was number 1. Now it's the top 2 teams will play against each other in a conference championship. And tiebreakers, such as like if they're like 5-1, 5-1, well, there's 9 games. Each team will be playing against 9 conference opponents. So like 8-1, 8-1 teams that are like tied for second, those tiebreakers will be announced at a later date. And we'll keep you guys informed here on the channel, so please like and subscribe if you like the content. But going right into the schedules, we're going to start with an ABC order, of course, because this is based off the picture that they've blessed us with for 2024, and we're going to be only going 24 because 2025 could change. Like, there could add 2 more teams this summer. They could add 2 more teams in like a week, and we wouldn't know, and then have to change all over again for 2025. So, starting with Illinois, we have our away games. We have Nebraska, Northwestern, and then the far travel with Oregon, Penn State, Rutgers, Michigan, Michigan State, Minnesota, Purdue. Illinois, coming out the gate, has a tough schedule. Like, Illinois is in the West right now, and not gonna lie, the West is pretty easy. Like, Iowa gets there like with like 8 wins, and they go to the Big Ten championship game. But like now, Illinois has to play Oregon, Michigan, Penn State, and I would say like Michigan State, but Michigan State hasn't been good in a long time. So, but like they have to play 3 juggernaut teams in their and before they're playing like Rutgers every year. They're playing junk. They're playing freaking Minnesota, Purdue, like crap teams. And now they have to play like 3 big houses. Moving on to Indiana, it's a tough schedule too. They have to play Ohio State, UCLA, Michigan, Washington, and then Maryland. If Maryland's good this year, they could be good next year. So like even Maryland, like Indiana hasn't been good in years, but like playing opponents like this, they're not going to be good. Like this is such a competitive. Adding 4 new teams, Oregon and Washington, for example, they're just powerhouses. UCLA is on the come up. USC is just a powerhouse on its own. And adding these 4 teams is just going to help make those like terrible teams even worse, and those like good teams like Iowa, for example, they're not going to be able to scrape by with a bad They have to step up, which they have to fire Brian Ferentz is what I'm saying. Notable matchups against Iowa is Michigan State, Ohio State, Washington, maybe Wisconsin, depending on how they go. But yeah, Iowa got lucky. They're not playing three powerhouses. They're playing Ohio State, Washington for the most part. Michigan State, they're on the come up. UCLA is also on the come up, but they still have a chance. And I think Iowa next year, if they make some real strides, they can really compete again. Especially that Ohio State game, that's gonna be a big one. It's gonna be in Buckeye. Oh, and then that home game against Washington and Kinnick is gonna be crazy. On to the next, Maryland. Notable games such as Oregon, USC, Penn State, and then so those notable games. Iowa's generally ranked, so that's also a pretty good matchup, I guess. Like Iowa, I was hit and miss, but Iowa's generally a ranked team for the most part. Every year they usually squeeze their way into the top 25 somehow, even with bad offense. But yeah, playing these opponents is just gonna, especially Maryland. Maryland's on the other side of the country playing against Oregon, USC. At least they're not playing Washington or UCLA. Thanks to Big Ten for helping them out with that kind of stuff. The travel would suck. But yeah, these lower tier teams are just going to have a hard time competing in the conference now of 18 teams. Yeah, but they're going to get that money. But still, it's going to be brutal. It's going to be hard to watch. But I guess it'll make the entire conference better. So hopefully, these other lower teams still compete and make it really competitive. Michigan, they're big. They have their guaranteed Ohio State, of course. It's probably gonna be end of the year. They play Oregon. They play USC. Michigan State, they're gonna be playing Oregon, Iowa, Ohio State, and I guess they're pretty good with keeping it down to two big powerhouses, top 10 of teams, and then generally another one that squeezes in the ranks here or there, kind of like an Iowa team, a Nebraska team, something like that, where they try to squeeze it. They have two that are usually top 15, top 10 teams, which is really good because if you make someone have to play against four teams that are just top talent every year, it's not even going to be fun for your team. You're just going to be losing at least 4 games. Like Minnesota here, they're going to be playing Michigan, Iowa, Wisconsin, Penn State, USC. I think Minnesota has a really tough schedule too because not only do they have two powerhouses like USC, Michigan, they also have the two, and Penn State. They also have the two squeeze in the rank here or there, Wisconsin and Iowa, which those are kind of guaranteed plays. But it's just gonna be a tough road for some of these lower tier teams in the Big Ten, and I don't even want to get to Northwestern because they're not good. Nebraska is gonna be playing notable Ohio State, USC, Iowa. It's just gonna be crazy. UCLA, Wisconsin. It's just so many good teams. This schedule is gonna be awesome because Iowa rarely gets to play Ohio State. All these East Side teams barely get to play Ohio State. It's here once in a while, one every couple years. And now there's all of these teams playing Ohio State. Everything's getting mixed around. I will miss the Penn State games with Iowa because I love Iowa going to the Penn State games. That stadium is beautiful. The whiteout is amazing. But going on to the Northwestern, they got Iowa, Michigan, Washington. They got Indiana. Indiana, that's jokes. Ohio State, Wisconsin, Northwestern needs to figure something out because they are the bottom. They're right there next to Rutgers with the worst teams in the league. But Northwestern likes to steal a little bit of wins here or there. So maybe they'll have a chance. Maybe they'll get into the portal or something. But doubtful indeed. Now moving on to another new blood to the Big Ten. Oregon coming in here. They got Michigan. They got UCLA, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Ohio State, Washington. These are some big games. They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They got at least 5 teams that are going to be ranked. Generally speaking, those are 5 historic teams that are ranked. Then they still play Michigan State and Maryland, which are two teams on the come up. Not Michigan State this year, but Maryland's on the come up this year. Michigan State historically has been a decent team overall, but like not as of late. But still, that's next year. They have 5 teams that are going to be like powerhouses. Now moving on to the Buckeyes, they got Oregon, Penn State, Iowa, Michigan. They only got like 4, but like still, they're going to be playing against some tough competition. I will say Ohio State probably has one of the easier round to goes because they only play against Oregon and Michigan, and they play against those teams anyway. They play Michigan every year. They play Oregon. It's felt like every year for the last couple of years. So like it's not like it's going to be something new. Like when Oregon comes in here, they're going to be playing all these Big Ten schools that they've never played before in their life, and it's going to be a journey. It's going to be a journey, guys. Penn State with some notables: USC, Wisconsin, Ohio State, Washington, UCLA. Then they got the Maryland on the come up, USC. If I didn't say it already, but like, yeah, the Penn State has a tough schedule too. I wonder, now that's going to be the question. They're playing 9 schools. What are the 3 non-conference games going to be? Because 3 non-conference games, that means they're going to have to play against maybe other conferences, or are they going to play FCS teams? I know Indiana already canceled Louisville's next couple years, probably because they only have so many non-conference games. They don't want to use one up against Louisville, and they want to play against bad teams. I definitely could see it. I know Iowa has the Iowa State game. That's a guarantee. That's already a given. So there's going to be 2 games there, probably against schluffs. But yeah, 9 guaranteed games. Moving on. Purdue getting against Ohio State, Wisconsin, Oregon, Penn State. These are some big games for Purdue. Purdue is a team that beats Ohio State when they're undefeated more times than I can count. Purdue is the sleeper team. Purdue kills drives, kills streaks. I think Purdue is one of those like teams where like even though they suck, they can make a real good game out of the performance of the week. Moving on to the worst team in the Big Ten, next to the Northwestern, we got ourselves Rutgers. They are going to be against USC, Washington, Wisconsin, and UCLA. Those are all losses. I think Rutgers is going to go 2-10, 3-10 because they're going to play 3 FCS teams. They might lose to one of them. They almost lost to Virginia Tech. What was it, Virginia Tech this year? Yeah, so probably going to play against 3 random teams, lose one of them. So that's 2 wins. They're going to they're going to go 0-9. They're going to go 0-9 conference. 0-9 conference, but they might have a competitive game against Maryland. But Maryland's on the up and up, so I don't think so. I think Rutgers go 2-10 next year. UCLA coming in first year. They got Washington, Penn State, Iowa, Oregon, USC. That's a tough schedule right there. That is a tough schedule. And if any of these teams are playing against any of their old Pac-12 teams in their non-conference games, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough out there in the Big Ten. And the last wave of teams here, we have USC, Michigan, UCLA, Washington, Wisconsin, Penn State. USC has a tough schedule. Don't get me wrong, they have a tough schedule. This year, USC has a tough schedule too in the Pac-12. But who would have thought the Pac-12 would have been good this year? I thought I would have just kept them on the side hip going, they're garbage. They're not going to be good. But now USC is going to come in here and have to play all these teams that have potential of being top 25 teams. Washington, same thing. Iowa, Oregon, Penn State, Michigan, USC, UCLA. I think Washington has one of the toughest schedule on here. And then we got to close out Wisconsin. They have Iowa, USC, Oregon, Penn State. It's all right schedule. I think based on what we're seeing here, there are going to be so many upsets, so much change around, so much different things. But that only time will tell. And I really want to see what these non-conference games. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe. Peace.